to use science and technology as a driver for development started in the 1970s under the military rule, with the establishment of funding agencies and research centers. Though progress was hindered by political instability and lack of continuity in the policies, in 2001 Nigeria took a strategic approach by launching the first national policy on science and technology. Understanding the need to diversify the oil-dependent economy, the government approved a revised National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy Act in 2012. The Science, Technology and Innovation Policy is meant to transform Nigeria into an innovation-driven knowledge economy that will harness research and technologies to catalyze sustainable economic growth, generate wealth, create employment and prosperity to improve the quality of lives in Nigeria. The key objectives that support these overarching goals are: increase national research and development spending to at least 1% of GDP over the next 5 years and upwards of 2% by 2025. Stimulate expansion of research capabilities in priority areas like ICT, biotechnology, nanotechnology, renewable energy, and indigenous medicines through funding infrastructure and skill development. Promote active collaboration between industry, universities, and government agencies to fund problem-focused research aligned to current economic challenges and industrial needs. Develop regional technology clusters through public-private partnerships for translating innovations to commercialization, thereby driving job creation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. Strengthen intellectual property management and technology transfer frameworks to incentivize more research and capitalization of knowledge. Continuously build advanced skill for STI through scholarship in science and technology, education tailored to economic growth requirements. By realizing these policy objectives across sectors, geographies, and socioeconomic demographies, Nigeria aims to drive inclusive development and position itself as a major global innovator. With a 20-year outlook, it focuses on using STIs to enable growth across 6 priority areas: food, security, wealth creation, job creation, poverty reduction, education advancement, and health improvements. Key strategies include boosting research and development, RD to at least 1% of GDP, establishing centers of excellence in biosciences, renewable energy, and nanotechnology, creating technology clusters for entrepreneurship, and using ICT for sustainable development. Funding comes from several agencies like the National Research Fund, the Nigeria Trust Fund, and the Innovation Fund. The STI policy also includes a national strategy for competitiveness in raw materials and product development, which was meant to add value to agricultural and mineral resources through processing instead of just export of raw materials. However, the policy indicates Nigeria's commitment to invest in scientific human capital and technologies of the future. Today, we shall be looking at one aspect of the priority areas that border on using STI to drive the job creation with the purpose of eradicating unemployment and poverty totally across the country. Hello and thanks for joining us once again on Policy Focus. I am Chana Ejaga. Before we continue on our topic of the day, here is the news update. The Director General of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Professor Ayo Motayo, made a call to policymakers to put appropriate measures in place to prevent frequent policy somersaults in the country. The DG made the call during a lecture titled Policy Somersault, the Bane of Development in Nigeria's Public Service at the 5th Distinguished Lecture Series of the Federal University Lokoja, Kogi State. Professor Omotayo urged policymakers to take Nigeria's diversity into account when formulating policies, as most policy failure can be attributed to the neglect of cultural differences, inadequate funding, and corruption.
So there will come to be something, policy somersault by governments until we change policies into laws. When they become laws, they become harder to change. Take into consideration the geographical location of where policies are put in place. There will always be a problem. About 18 months ago, no, about 12, 15 months ago, I was in Sokoto, and I found very, very elaborately built schools. Fantastic schools, science schools, built for girls. And those schools didn't have children. To be candid, the facilities the government put in place are even better than some you see in the universities. But of course, all over Nigeria, there is a law that says every child must go to school. Based on that, the governor built fantastic facilities. But if you look at that particular location, this facility will not work because the people there are different, and by all the policies you are giving them does not work with their religion. So as long as our geographical locations are different and are differentiated, some policies may not work, and there will be need for that somersault that will come. But I've already told us that we can modify certain policies to work for certain geographical locations. The same thing that goes for geography goes for religion. Certain religions do not accept certain practices. So we set up policies in the corner of Nigeria and we expect it to be accepted everywhere. It is not going to work. Not because the government people or government actors do not want policies to work, but because a country like Nigeria is multi-diverse, multi-religious, and we believe in different things. So how do you set up a policy that works for everybody? So that is part of our problem. And of course, there is also the funding problem. No matter how well the policy is well placed, no matter how well it is formulated, there are times when government is challenged by funding. You ask the question, why did you set up the policy if you knew you won't be having the money to do or to run it?
The Vice-Chancellor applauded the Director General for previous donations made to the university and for his lecture at the 5th Distinguished Lecture Series at the Federal University, Lokoja. Chana Ejoga, reporting for NIPSS Policy TV.
It's new, it's fresh, it's all about policies and strategies. Watch out for NIPSS Policy TV programs on NTA News 24. Tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on DSTV Channel 419, GoTV Channel 26, Star Times Channels 101 and 433, and Free TV Channel 703. Miss this and miss out on policies that will affect you and our country. Join us.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. Today on Policy Focus, we will be looking at how the National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy can be used to drive job creation in the country. Remember, we said earlier, the policy initiative of STI started in the 1970s under the military rule, but was formally enacted into law in 2001. And since then, it has been under constant amendments by the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation up until the 2022 edition of the Act. It is public knowledge that several attempts and interventions have been put in place to reduce unemployment rate in Nigeria. So, with the use of STI policy to drive job creation, it will be important we appraise the policy to know where exactly we are in Nigeria on the issue of job creation. To address this, we have a seasoned Nigerian who is extensively versatile on the issue and a professional par excellence in this field to provide answers to these pertinent questions. We'll be joining him in his office for the interview. Stay with us. Welcome and thanks for joining us. To discuss with me on the issue or the topic of the day, I have Dr. Razak Olabomi, who is a senior fellow at the STI department of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPSS Kuru. So it's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's delve into our discussion. Fundamentally, can you give us an overview of how investments in research and development can lead to new products and services that require hiring more employees?
When you talk about hiring employee, or when you talk about employment, it doesn't have to be government employment. It could be self-employment. It could be small and medium scale enterprises. But all these things could be achieved through proper research and development. And by the way, research and development is being used in other countries to develop. I can give you an instance. In Malaysia in 2008, when there was a serious economic meltdown, there was a research on fast-growing rice. Okay. This rice was researched on, developed, planted. The period of maturity is no more than 1.5 months. And before you know what is happening, the country was at ease as far as food security is concerned. So research and development can actually stimulate employment in so many areas, in agriculture, in health industry, in manufacturing, in so many other places. So research and development is key to employment.
Taking Nigeria's environment into consideration, what emerging technologies have the greatest potential for job creation in the next 5 to 10 years?
Actually, there are a number of emerging technologies. And trust Nigerians, Nigerians are individually keen into all these emerging technologies. Do you want to talk about AI? Do you want to talk about Internet of Things? We call it IoT. Do you want to talk about 3D printing? Do you want to talk about nanotechnology? Do you want to talk about blockchain technology that is used in finance, in multi-stage ledger, and the rest of it? Take, for instance, you have robotics. Nigerians are keen into robotics. But unfortunately, I say unfortunately, these things are being done on individual basis. And most of these things being done are not well appreciated. But talk about it. Nigerians are actually doing well. In fact, this issue of artificial intelligence, that is using software, the machine learning activities and the rest of it, Nigerians are good at all these things. But unfortunately, again, when we learn some of these things and we learn it very well, we run away. So those technologies, if properly harnessed, will be very, very, very relevant in job creation, wealth creation, and a lot of other things for Nigeria.
Okay, how can we prepare the future workforce for jobs utilizing new technologies?
Basically, I could say, let's look at our institutions, especially the technical and vocational studies. These are areas where the young ones can be well-grounded in technology. And it is when you are well-grounded in science and technology that you can go into this innovation. You can go into developing a lot of products that could be highly marketable. And these are also a way of increasing employment to Nigeria. Actually, just let me mention again, in other places which I witnessed, a diploma student is already programmed to know where exactly he's going to. And the method of teaching is not theoretical based, it's practical based. So if Nigeria could go into this, especially in our polytechnics, in our colleges of in our technical colleges, and in our technology universities, we have Lautech, we have Futmina, we have Futo, we have so many of them, in which we can, if possible, review our curriculum, make sure that our technology teaching is practically oriented, and we make sure that all this, our young ones are tailored towards production. So by so doing, Nigeria can move on.
In your opinion, how can we ensure a pipeline of homegrown technical talent necessary for technology industries to thrive?
Before you have homegrown technology, then you have to develop homegrown talents. How do you develop homegrown talents? It's by looking into the present curriculum we have in all these technical institutions and make sure we review them and tailor it towards development of our homegrown technology.
What are the necessary infrastructures needed to attract technology companies and enable innovation?
If you ask me, I would say, in my opinion, I have always been saying we need three things in Nigeria. What are those three things? Our energy infrastructure, let it be overhauled. Our transportation infrastructure, let it be okay. Then we improve on our healthcare infrastructure. If Nigerians are having access to uninterrupted power supply, and there is good transportation system, leave Nigeria alone. Nigerians will go extra mile. A lot of things will continue. Take for instance now, you are farming. You harvest your product. When in my research, I realized that only about 30 to 35% of our agro products are getting to the market. The remaining 65 to 70% being wasted on the farm because we don't have post-harvest processing facilities. We don't have storage facilities. And how do you use post-harvest facilities? You need power. How do you keep your things, especially perishable items? You need power. Another major problem where we have waste on the farm is lack of transportation system. Farmers harvest their product, they can't move it to the market. So these are some of the, once these issues are addressed, then we have no problem.
Okay, sir, how can technology help small businesses hire more employees?
You know, there used to be a fear that technology will take place of human beings, would take place of human beings, and the human beings will be jobless. But I said no. Technology will enhance your performance. Technology will make your product to be more quality and more standardized. Take for instance, I'm a bottled water producer, for instance. If I want to produce for like 1,000 people, let's say at the rate of 1,000 cartons per day, can I produce it by myself? No. Can I satisfy all these people? No. I need technology. And what kind of technology is it? That's what we call robotics. That's what we call automation system. That's where the division of labor is applied. When you now have division of labor applied, you employ people. Somebody to do washing, filling, and capping, somebody to do pet blowing for you, somebody to do wrapping for you, somebody to do packaging for you. At the end of the day, you employ more, you produce more, you satisfy more customers. So technology can actually lead to employing more people, producing more, and making sure that we have security, as in food security, energy security, and so a lot of security.
Which technologies hold potential for empowering individuals or small groups to become entrepreneurs and self-employed?
Artificial intelligence. You use artificial intelligence farming activities. As you are now, you can be a farmer. Yeah, you have a farm, you sit down in your room, and you have what we call remote sensing to observe what is happening on your farm and monitor when your farm is ready for fertilizer. I mean, you are ready to apply fertilizer, you are ready to apply herbicide, you are ready to do harvest. You can monitor everything. And these are some of the opportunities that the young people have. You know, young people are young, and with young minds, easy for them to get acquainted with all these emerging technologies. I just give you an example of one. Another one is what we call AMT, that's Advanced Manufacturing Technology. Another one is VR, that is virtual reality. Virtual reality helps you to avoid wastages, waste of time, waste of resources, waste of energy, waste of so many things. You can do your cutting, milling, welding, assembly, and testing in a virtual lab. You assemble and you do everything. You check the compatibility of what you have assembled. You can even test in the virtual lab before you actually go to the real workshop. So all these things are very possible. But one thing must be ensured, and that is one of the things I mentioned earlier: energy infrastructure. All these things can never be done without stable energy, or let me say stable power supply. So whether you want to monitor your farm while sitting down in your room, whether you want to do your virtual manufacturing, whether you want to do every other thing, you need power, and this must be settled.
What will be your take? What will be your take about the state of our research and development infrastructure? Do you think there are enough well-equipped labs, research centers, and funding mechanisms to drive innovation?
Looking at the science, technology, and innovation policy, there is a recent review. And one of the issues highlighted in the policy, in fact, it's more than one that you have just mentioned now. One is, the very key one is lack of funding to implement the policy. Another one, which is key, and you have mentioned now, is the poor understanding and poor coordination of the implementing institutions. So lack of funding is compounded with the inability of government to put in place research and innovation council, which was programmed to be a vehicle through which research funding could be channeled to research institutions and for research and development activities. That was not done, and that was why there was need for review and to put more pressure on signing of the bill, for creation of the council. Then another one, which I say poor coordination and poor understanding of the implementing institution, has to do with poorly equipped lab that we are talking about. Most of our labs are not well equipped. Most of our institutions, higher institutions, when you go there, you realize that learning in Nigeria is not so easy. So we are just used to improvisation. And that's what makes us a little bit different, and a little bit when you go out and you realize that Nigerians are performing wonderfully outside. It's because where we grow up, we manage everything, we improvise for everything, because we don't have good and well-equipped laboratories. Another one that probably you didn't mention is how do we program the students' industrial training? I was like, how is SUES and IT program being monitored? How is it being evaluated? I think we should look at these areas. The ITF that is in charge of student work industrial experience, I just said SUES, you may not know the meaning of SUES. So, and industrial training that students are undergoing. How is it being conducted? I think we should look at this thing very well. So once we have all those things in place, then all these challenges can be surmounted. Another problem that we are facing is, that has to do with poor funding. Even funding to small and medium scale enterprises is not forthcoming. And when you look at these SMEs, the environment is very, very terrible for them. One, it has to do with some of the problems I mentioned earlier in terms of power and the rest of it. Another one is non-SME friendly tax. These are some of the issues, these are some of the challenges being faced by our SMEs and by young ones that are coming up that have the potential to come up with small and medium scale businesses.
What are the opportunities for technology to enable employment for underserved communities and developing economies?
Underserved communities. What makes them to be underserved is probably a lack of access to them. And this lack of access covers almost everywhere. One, they are underserved in terms of road, they are underserved in terms of energy supply, they are underserved in terms of all other basic facilities. So if we want these communities to have their full potential harnessed, one, let them be served with power supply. And one way to do this is to go renewable. Renewable energy is energy you tap from the source and use at the point of tapping it. So these communities can actually make use of renewable energy to get themselves engaged and to get all the activities be done and be powered. Because once you don't have access to, let me give you an instance. We traveled to Algeria 2021. There are areas where they call shadow areas, shadow communities. It was then I realized that there's no difficult terrain where development cannot reach. So this is a clarion call to Nigerian government. When we say communities are underserved, we made them to be underserved. There could be deliberate effort to make this underserved community be served. And once they are served, they can actually contribute to our national economy by actively producing. In these underserved communities that we are talking about, they are mostly farmers. They produce crops. When they produce crops, their crops are part of the 65 to 70%, I said, get wasted on the farm. So if these underserved communities are well served, then our food security can be guaranteed, our GDP can improve, and our national economy would definitely get improved.
Can you shed light on how overdependence on oil revenue has affected job creations in Nigeria?
When we talk about oil revenue, or when we talk about dependence on oil, I see oil as just one of the things that a country should derive its revenue from. And the way we use our oil in Nigeria is what makes it to be a little bit problematic. From one barrel of crude oil, there are 1,001 products you can derive from it. And from all these products, there are chains of opportunities. There are chains of employment opportunities where people can tap from. Take, for instance, from one barrel of crude oil, you have petroleum. You have petrol, you have kerosene, you have diesel, you have resin, you have other products, other plastic products, which you can use to produce some of these things. Your camera, my TV, so many other products can come from one barrel of crude oil. But instead of processing it, we sell it out crude. So that is one. Then, one of the things that are mentioned in the STI policy is for Nigeria to go into what we call knowledge-based economy. When you go into knowledge-based economy, you make sure that your production and consumption is research and development backed. So when you do this, you make sure that your product, any of your raw material, you make sure it is well maximized. So, and in Nigeria, we have so many raw materials. So if you maximize some of these materials, then we'll be less dependent on oil. Let me tell you, Malaysia, as an example again, doesn't have this so-called oil in commercial quantities. But Nigeria that has crude oil in commercial quantity, we import petroleum products from Malaysia. So you can see. So if we maximize our oil products, it's good to depend on oil, but not on crude oil. Not on crude oil, say. We depend on oil products to develop, to have all our, to service all our needs. There's no way we don't need petroleum products, but we should make sure that the product, we do refining. When we do refining, we get so many products, which can also get us into creating more jobs and more work opportunities.
What is your opinion about the skill gap in technology fields in Nigeria?
Yeah, there is still gap, and in my opinion, the skill gap is likely to continue. Why? Because of the environment. We've said earlier that there is a little encouragement in research and development. And when you don't invest in research and development, there are chances that people who have passion for research and development will be looking elsewhere. There are problems with our infrastructures. When you don't have infrastructure for technical skills, there are chances that people who have passion for technical skill to develop themselves technically will want to run away to places where they can't develop their technical skill. And people who manage to develop their technical skill in Nigeria are actually running away. And that's why I say I feel that the gap will continue unless we do something. And what do? We make sure that we improve on our infrastructural development. And we have institutions who are charged with the responsibility of infrastructural development. So one of it is NASENI. NASENI is National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. One of it is NIBRI. NIBRI is National Research and National Building and Road Research Institute. These institutions and agencies are charged with the responsibility of developing infrastructure needed for Nigerian's technical development. So if all these institutions are well positioned, the skill gap, I believe will get reduced. But if not, my sister, I'm afraid.
From your vast experience, what can you say about the difficulties faced in acquiring technology in Nigeria?
The difficulty we have is the infrastructural challenges. When we say the lab is not well equipped, that's one of the infrastructure. I could remember in 2010-11, NASENI, that is National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, embarked on distribution of science kits to schools across Nigeria. I don't know if that continues up to today. There was another exercise which I participated while I was in NASENI, distribution of advanced manufacturing technology equipment to some of higher institutions in Nigeria. If all these are followed up, and let me tell you some of the equipment supplied. We have CNC milling and lathe machine, that is computer numeric control milling and lathe machine. We have rotary furnace. We have software for virtual manufacturing, which you can use to design any products, manufacture it virtually to see how it's going to look like before you take it to the real workshop for the manufacturing. So that saves you a lot of time. That saves you a lot of energy, a lot of resources. So if efforts like this can be continued, then learning technical skill in Nigeria could be easier. Challenges that we face in acquiring technology development in Nigeria could be removed. So Nigeria could go into, because what NASENI was trying to do that time was, okay, to be able to train people how to do prototypes. When you do prototype, the SMEs can key into your product and its production process, and they can mass produce. By so doing, Nigeria will get the necessary production skill that we need to go into production. And instead of depending on oil, just like you said the other time, we'll diversify our economy.
What will be your advice on regulatory barriers and bureaucracies surrounding business establishments in Nigeria?
That's one of the challenges faced by SMEs, is non-SME friendly tax, multiple taxations, and a lot of things. So another problem they have, which we have been talking about since, is the power problem. When you want to be a successful SME in Nigeria, you have to learn how to self-generate your power. And when you self-generate your power, your product become less competitive because it will be costly. Because you have to load the cost of running generator and the rest of it on your product. So that means you'll be challenged by imported products. Yours will not be competing favorably with the imported product. So if all these problems, all these challenges can be surmounted, just like I said, Nigerians need 3 things, and 2 are major. One is regular power supply. The other one is transportation system. Then the third one to support it is healthcare infrastructure. Once those things are settled, then our challenges are limited.
And lastly, what do you think can be done to change risk-adverse culture of Nigerian youths towards owning and managing their own businesses?
Just one thing I will mention, just policy consistency. When you know that, take for instance, you go to bank to get a loan to run your business. Bank gives you a particular condition now. And before you know it, they say there is a change in policy and the condition changes. Everybody is scared of this. Me personally, if I want to go into business, if I want to go into business and I need loan, I'm very skeptical. Even Bank of Industry, that has a single digit interest rate, sometimes can be funny. So we need to have policy that will support long-term loan, that will support long-term incentive for small business holders. So this will encourage Nigeria, and it will reduce the fear of going into self-employment. So all I would say is we should please be consistent with our policy. Although no policy is 100% perfect, there is need for review. But before we review, we should take into consideration who are likely going to be affected and to what extent. So in addition to that, there are problems of land acquisition. For instance, I want to have my own industry. To acquire a land is a major problem. There are places where you go that you acquire land today, you want to start building your factory. You see people, different kinds of people coming to disturb you. Government needs to do something on this. That is one. Another one is sometimes we have cultural barrier, language barrier, so many other barriers hindering establishment of industries in Nigeria. This is making the environment not to be friendly with small business owners. So I think we should do something on this. Then there is one thing that just came to my mind again. The other time we had a brainstorming session with MAN. One of the problems MAN highlighted was bureaucratic bottleneck at the point of entry. For instance, I am an industrialist. Some of the materials I need for setting up my industry is not produced in Nigeria. They have to be imported. So importing it is highly difficult, and these are deliberately created at the point of entry. So these are areas where we need to look into to encourage some of our young business owners in Nigeria.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you, sir. That's all we can take for now. Let's get back to the program for more on Policy Focus. Stay with us.
I think the most important thing is if there will be an availability of the science and technology knowledge that will be dispensed to both the learned and the unlearned, and more especially if it can go to the grassroots. So many people would want to know how to operate a computer. So many people will want to know how to do certain things, graphics and other type settings and the rest, but they do not have access to things like that. So I think there will be a need for the government to look into that, provide a symposium or maybe a skill acquisition in that regard, and at the same time, maybe if there is opportunity or if they can, they should as well offer maybe a computer accessories and maybe tablets.
We all know that the world is turning into a global village, and when we mean global village, it has to do with science and technology. So I think the government should do more on that, because I believe yearly the government conducts innovative skill execution for people. But after that, what next? Is it that after you empower those people, you let them go? I don't feel that is the best way. You follow up those people and then try to train up more people in that field. I believe it will go a long way.
The country is actually going digital. Like the world is actually going digital, but Nigeria as a country is far left behind. So I think the number one thing is when you start making all your when you start making all your parastatals go digital, there will be need for employment, because you will need all these tech guys. In fact, this N hub that is just here was the first tech hub in Nigeria. People from Lagos usually come here to come and learn before they took their business somewhere else. You understand? So when they decide to involve these guys, you understand, we have a lot of tech guys. I have like almost 50% of my friends are actually into tech, but they are working for people outside. So why not bring these people inside so that they will come and create stuffs that you can actually use in your ministries? It even curb corruption. You understand? And the employment rates will be so massive because more people want to go into it.
We have individual differences. There are others who are good in vocational aspects, and there are those that are good in theoretical aspect. So when you access different fields of people, you tend to understand that this one is good vocationally and this one is good theoretically. So you tend to balance it up.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Keep watching NIPSS Policy TV.
Everything in life has a price tag. People should be conscious of whatever they do, it has consequences, either for good or for bad. So people should not assume.
As a participant in NIPSS, I'm sure you can see the smile on my face. I would say being a participant in NIPSS was an absolutely lovely experience for me. From the moment I came in for the 10 months I spent here, it was awesome. It taught me a side of me, and I saw a side of me that I did not know I had. It brought out the best in me, and it actually allowed me to think more than or beyond how I used to think. And being in NIPSS brings out something deep within you that if you really want to be a participant and not just passing through. And I ensured that I made the best use of NIPSS. Study-wise, games-wise, I'm not a games person, but I woke up almost every morning to go for the morning walking, morning jogging. And then the directing staff, then it was at Sec 43, 2021. We were told when you come in, drop whatever airs you have at the gate and come in. And it was like back to school, another experience. And it made me have friends, brothers, sisters for life, because we are now a community. Sec 43 is a family. There's nowhere I go to now as long as it is Sec 43 and the wider Annie. But for Sec 43, I want to say we're a blessing to each other, because we found in each other and in one another friends and sisters, and we call ourselves sisters for life, brothers for life, and our DSs were good. I was in study group 1. Rear Admiral Jayola, AVM Uchinwagu, MNI. Oh, Rear Admiral Jayola, MNI. That was my study group, and I was vice chair of study group 1 for the entire 10 months. And I would just say interesting, impactful, insightful, and absolutely amazing time of my life. I will not say it's an elitist group, because anyone who is in ANI must have passed through NIPSS in a way that has made you look at the broader society, because you're a member not of your community, but of the country and the world at large, because you have to stop thinking of yourself and your community or your ethnic group or your religion. No, it transcends above all that. Being a member of ANI makes you look at the world in a different light, because you are first and foremost a human being, and we're discussing humanity. We're not talking about the little things that make us divide, or rather divisive in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have too many different camps. Yes, they say we're elitists, but are we really elitists? I doubt we are, because we are all in our different sectors, in our different strata of society. You have those who are up there, and you have those who are down there. But we're all one. As long as you're a member of ANI, you are one. It makes no difference where you come from, who you are, and we would resist any form of, how will I put it now, segregation, because that is not what we are here for. For anyone who wants to be, well, when you say like me, I don't understand when you say like me. Oh, an MNI, okay. Well, an MNI for us, I am from the civil service. I grew up through the civil service, and it is as a result of my being a director in the Federal Civil Service that I was nominated to NIPSS. And then, as God would have it, immediately I left NIPSS. I was nominated. My state was vacant for PAMSEC. So that's how come I ended up going for the exam, passing the exam, and today, by the grace of God, I'm the PAMSEC. So my advice would be, keep working hard. Don't look for the shortcuts, even though shortcuts can be very good, but more often than not, the best cut is when you go through things the right way. Make sure you do the right things, your integrity, your character. Because if you do not have a good character, you can't expect to actually be in NIPSS. Because NIPSS shapes you better. It makes you a much better person. If you do intend to pass through NIPSS, it makes you a better person, your character-wise, integrity, and to be honest, it makes you have friends all over Nigeria. And that is why we are called elitists, but we are not elitists. Thank you.
Nigerian experts have pointed out that fiscal instability, inflation, foreign exchange rate fluctuations have brought about uncertainty, and it is hindering longer-term research and development planning and investment required for STI job growth in Nigeria. So more effort should be channeled towards addressing these vital areas mentioned to achieve optimal job creation, to reduce unemployment and poverty in Nigeria. That is all we have on Policy Focus today. I am Chana Ejoga. Till I see you next time, bye for now.